And you started this during COVID, right? You're just bored. Let's have conversations with people.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, folks. Welcome back. I missed you all after a few little travel hiccups and weeks on the road. It's great to be back. Good to see everybody in great shape. The weather is getting much nicer. I see a lot of familiar faces. Finally, our friends here in the northern or eastern hemispheres don't have to sit inside and smoke it or smoke in the cold anymore. If Dejan were here, he wouldn't have to freeze his ass off. And we just spoke about the lovely weather in the Dominican with our special guest for tonight, living the life, the man, the myth, the legend, Enrique Seijas from Matilde Cigars is here with us today. It's good to see you,
How you
man.
doing, my friend? It's
It's
good to see you too.
much
It's
better
it's
if I
always
get
it's always a great pleasure to see you.
all mine. And it was great bumping into you in New Orleans at the trade show. Uh, it was very busy. I'm curious to hear about your show briefly, but today we actually want to focus a little bit on the wonderful project that you officially announced just before the PCA, and you showed it off at the PCA. Um, and it's interesting in two regards, obviously. First of all, it's a tribute to your father, who unfortunately passed away last year. But also, it's sort of your an even bolder step, I feel, for you, putting your energy, your passion, your love for your father in the cigar. But since it's also sort of the first major project without your father, I know you were at the helm of Matilda Cigars for a long while, anyways. But I'm very curious to learn how you feel that moving forward, the whole creative process, the process of coming up with new blends, new products, how that is going to feel, and whether you feel it's somehow different now. But we'll get to all of that in just a second. First of all, I wanted to say thanks to everybody who's joining us today. If you're over on the YouTube live stream, please make yourselves heard and chime in, get into the chat box, and fire away. Send us your questions, your thoughts, and for all of you guys here at the lounge, please chime in and make yourselves heard. So, Enrique,
Ask away.
Para José Seijas, let's talk about this beautiful creation. Obviously, and I want to acknowledge that, and I want to be respectful of that. I can understand and appreciate that it's probably a very emotional thing for you to talk about, and obviously the whole creation was something very meaningful to you. When did the idea come to life initially? Because I know that you've been working on this for quite a while, and then it just unpleasantly sort of coincided with the passing of your father. But you've been working on this project for quite a bit, didn't you?
Actually, I have, yes. I always like to start with the genesis of why the project started and the reason behind the project, right? So I'm second generation in the cigar industry, and it's thanks to my dad. My father started in 1974. Sheer coincidence, got hired straight out of university, and his first job became his passion. It was simple as that. He was one of those fortunate guys where he only had one job, and he built his way up to being the VP of operations and master for that company. But so moving a little bit fast forward, my dad got diagnosed with Parkinson's about 15 years ago, and he was still running the company where everything was perfectly fine. Parkinson's, for those that don't know, is a degenerative disease, and everything's well, and then it comes to a point where it goes like fast forward. That didn't happen up to about 6 years ago when we actually started feeling my dad's Parkinson's and the effects that were actually going on, right? So about 4 years ago, I'm sitting down and I'm thinking about my dad, right? And how he's been. I mean, my dad was a guy that loved tobacco, loved giving back, loved people, and he was just passionate. And I had no way to, I didn't know how to thank him, right? And it hit me. I say, Coño, you know what? Uh, Family members always pay tribute to their loved ones after they pass away. Why not is they pay tribute to my father in life? And that's how the project actually started. It was about 4 years ago, right? The idea, the concept of the project was creating a cigar with his name. Keep in mind that our family company does not have Seijas Cigars, it's Matilde Cigars, right? And there's a whole different story behind that, right? But it was a cigar with his name. That's how the project actually started, right? It was okay. I want a cigar in our company under our umbrella that bears my dad's last name. That was my initial thank you. I would say, I want to thank my dad. How do I thank a guy that's had it all? It doesn't need anything. Also, if he's financially well off, I mean, besides the Parkinson's, he had a great family. He did nothing, and he was a guy that actually needed nothing. So my dad loved being with his family, loved making cigars, and loved playing golf, and he had all of that, right? So there's nothing material I could give him. Also, I couldn't show him more love than I could. I used to see him every day. I took my kids every day. So, coño, let's share his passion. Let's say thank you with his passion, and that's where Para José Seijas starts. So it started as this project where Matilde, or the company, Grupo Astana, was going to launch a product with my dad's name. And not only our last name, but the brand literally says For Jose Seijas Limited Edition in honor of my father. It was a cigar from me, from the company to him, thanking him. Thanking him for everything that he's done for me, for my family, for the cigar industry, for the people in the industry, for everybody that he's helped. It was his thank you. And I think it was the only way I could actually thank him. Besides saying thank you, right? But like material wise, I thought it was the only way I could do it. So I have a great friend who designs most of my branding, Rafa Miguel from Fieras. I tell him the story. I tell him what I'm looking for. And that motherfucker came up with that branding video in 2.5 seconds. He gave me 4 different options, and I fell in love with what is the Para José Seijas branding now, and I'll let you know why. Eh, my dad was a very quiet, soft-spoken person. He went straight to the point. He spoke elegantly, never cursing or anything like. He was just very quiet and straightforward. And I thought the brand, that's what it brought out. There was a branding that had my dad's face. I'm like, look, that looks like he's dead. It's like a mortuary. I want something that's more classic and more timeless. And I think that's what this branding brought to the cigar, to the brand, right? So we had this branding, and I moved fast forward. I was excited, right? We have packaging made, we had the rings made, we had the boxes made, but guess what? How about the cigar? I never, ever, 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 ever imagined that it was going to be so intensive, or we went through blends and blends and blends, and it wasn't that the cigars that we were trying, it wasn't that they were not great, right? But I just didn't have that click. I needed to have that click where I smoked a cigar. I said, yeah, this is Para Jose. This is my dad. This is for my dad. It had to have that balance, that sweetness, it had to make your mouth water. It was all these combinations that I remember my dad talking about. He was the kind of guy, he was smoking the cigar, right? Chewed on his cigar, fucking saliva all over the place. He was, hey, Enrique, this is great. Try it out. And when you saw the tip of the cigar, it was all chewed up. I'm like, are you crazy? I'm not smoking that. But that's that was the effect I was looking for with the cigar, right? I wanted to have that water mouth effect with the sweetness and everything. And every brand that we tried out, it just didn't click. It just wasn't there. So that kept on going and going. I put it to the back burner. I kept on trying blends, and then meanwhile, everything was ready. Packaging was ready. All that stuff was ready, right? And about a year ago, I found it. I was smoking. Well, actually, this exact table. at this exact position, I guess. I was smoking a cigar, blend I was trying from Islam. Like, fuck, this is it. This is Para José Seijas. Well, straight into production, start producing. Move fast forward, and my father passes away November 6th, right? He got sick. He'd had a couple of years where his quality of life wasn't great, and he passes away. So the project started taking another meaning, right? Everything evolves, and I think God works in mysterious ways. God works differently, and there's a reason behind everything, right? I got delayed with this project. We're in the process of launching, and so the first thing that starts is that, you know what, I'm gonna do this project not only as a way to pay homage to my family name with great tobacco, but let's do what my dad's calling was. My dad had two passions. It was his family, and it was cigars, manufacturing, the process, making that perfect cigar with a perfect draw. But I think his actual calling, I think that's one of the reasons he loved where he worked, is that he loved helping people. And he was in a very peculiar or very particular position where he wasn't only the largest employer in our hometown, but he had a huge pool of people where he was able to help people, loans, houses, furniture. So this is what he loved to do. It drove him. It's actually what drove him, right? It was helping, making people's life better. And I mean, the story I always said, I think I said like 175 times at the show. It was, and that's where I understood, right? I understood how my dad thought. I was about 14, 15 years old. And I was in his office, and this manager wanted to buy a new car, and just to make his life better. He had a kid, he wanted a bigger car. He went to the bank, he denied the bank. The bank denied the loan. Goes to the cooperative denied the loan. The guy did not qualify for the amount of money he was asking for. So he goes to my dad. My dad was always the last resort, right? He was one thing that my dad had, which I loved, is that he had an open door policy. Well, doesn't matter if it was manager, doesn't matter the guy that cleaned the floor. Anybody could go to his office and just have a conversation, or whatever it needed to be, right? So he goes to my dad and explains the situation. And my dad, as I said, very soft spoken, says, "Okay, no problem. Go to the cooperative. Tell them to give you the money, and your I'll be your co-signer." Guy leaves. I look at my dad. I'm a nice little spoiled brat. I've never wanted for anything. I lived a great life, right? And I look at my dad, and I'm like, so what are you doing? Explain to me. He's like, what do you mean? I was, obviously, financial institution said he couldn't. He wasn't viable for the loan. Why would you give him a loan? And for him, it was simple. It was just because I can, because I have the opportunity and the financial opportunity to help this person to have a better life, to give something better for his family. So why wouldn't I do it? And that's where actually, like, way back when, I understood how he worked, and what his actual calling was, and why he loved what he did so much. Just like he loved tobacco, but he was helping so many people. And there's a lot of stories like that. And the cool thing about when I started working in the industry is how I started listening, because he was my dad. So whatever he did, it was like, yeah, it's that, right? But when you start hearing this type of stories, like, from the owner of Papelería Romana, which is a paper place in La Romana, or from a tobacco guy, from a broker, from wherever, right? He always heard these stories, and he always helped because he could. He never wanted anything in return. He was a just person and just try to help. And that's where the project started taking another turn. So my dad's getting sicker, passes away, and I said, you know what? Let's actually follow his calling, and let's fight the disease that afflicted him. So that's where we took a turn and said, this is a limited project where we're going to donate $10 for every box that I sell towards the Parkinson's Foundation in the Dominican Republic. Why Parkinson's Foundation? Because, you know, that's what we live for. It's an extremely tolling disease in two ways. Emotionally for the caregivers, but it's also financially tolling. And mostly in the Dominican Republic, dopamine and alopa is the main component that's used for Parkinson's, and extremely expensive in the Dominican Republic. As I said, we're financially well off, so we didn't have any issues. But I lived firsthand people that had that issue, that couldn't, you know, they were struggling to buy like their main medicine that combats Parkinson's. So that's where it started. You know, I said, "Coño, you know what? Let's start donating. Let's start giving. Let's do what my dad would have. What would my dad do? Right? This is something that my dad would love to do." So that's how the project started. So as we keep on evolving and keep, you know, getting deeper into the conversation, it's going to go. So I go, you know what? The initial part of this project was paying a homage to my dad while he was alive. It was a thank you. And that's the reason it was going to be a one-time thing. It's like a gift, right? It's a gift that you know, give somebody a car. I was going to give my dad be able to cigar brand as a thank you, this donation, because it would cover, as I said, it covers family, which is our last name, cover tobacco because the cigar is freaking great, but I'm a little bit biased, right? And then it covers giving back, you know, passing it forward. And those are the three things that my dad lived for. And here's why I say where God, you know, works in mysterious ways. Just say, you know what, I can't pay homage to my dad in life because he's not alive anymore, right? My dad's in heaven. I'm sure he's smoking a Para José Seijas, you know, with a nice glass of scotch and playing golf and teeth with a dog or something like that, right? Because in heaven you get everything that you need. And I said, you know what? Let's keep his life. Let's keep his legacy. Let's keep his passion of giving with this project. And instead of doing it a one-time thing, well, you know, let's do it a yearly thing or a bi-yearly thing where every time we release a Para José Seijas, we raise funds for the Parkinson's Foundation in the Dominican Republic. We help other people. So the project started 4 years ago. It procrastinated, you know, up until, you know, the year before the year that my dad passed away. I produced it. It took an evolution where I was going to donate because I believed it came to a point. You know, the cool thing about procrastination, and something I've read, is that a lot of times ideas, as you procrastinate, a positive procrastination starts showing up. So that's where the donation came in. And unfortunately, as I said, God works in mysterious ways. The passing of my father, you know, enlightened me and said, you know what? Let's not make it a one-time thing. Let's make it a continual thing where it can actually keep my father's soul, legacy, and passion alive in the industry that he loves so much. And that is Para José Seijas. Para José Seijas is not only a cigar. It's the way of me and my family keeping my dad relevant for us and his goals of life, which was helping, relevant in our family. And, you know, this year we might, you know, raise $7,500, but, you know, like in, you know, 5-6 years from now, we're raising, you know, a couple $100,000 can help more and more and more. Just keep it going, keep it passing it forward, because you and I, we're fortunate. I mean, we've been fortunate. We live in a beautiful industry, a great family. I mean, we have everything that we might need, right? We always want more. You know, you always want a nicer car, you want to sell more, but we have a house, we have our medical needs taken care of, we have our kids, I have my kids' education taken care of. So let's pass it forward. Let's what with my dad, let's pass it forward. And that's where this project takes actual life. You know, it was a project where it actually takes life, was my dad's passing away. And that's why I say initially, God works in mysterious ways. Because if my dad were still alive, doesn't matter in what condition he would have been, it would be a one-time thing. and that was it. So that is Para José Seijas in a nutshell.
And what a beautiful nutshell that is, Enrique. Such a beautiful
Thank you.
project, and very moving to hear you speak about it and how it's evolved over the years. Um, would you have looked at the project differently, or would you have done things differently, if sort of the timeline were different? If you would have started working on this after your father passed away rather than being so far into it?
Honestly, I wouldn't know how to answer that because the initial part of the project was, as I said, it was I want a cigar with my dad's name on it. That was his thing, right? And then it's been ever evolving up until the day my dad passed away, right? It might be a possibility, like if I would have come up with this project while my dad passed away, I might have not created the project
Mm.
because he was already passed away. This project was a thank you for him
Yeah.
as he was alive, and it evolved to let's keep my dad alive, right? Maybe I'm a believer, and my wife hates this part of me. I don't like giving gifts when you have to give a gift. So a birthday is a birthday. Mother's Day is a Mother's Day. You have to, right? I've always liked doing stuff when you don't have to do it because I feel like it,
When the other
right?
is not expecting it, right? I'm the exact same.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you feel like it. You feel like giving my wife, yeah, let's give her a gift. What the fuck? Or anybody, like my kids or anybody, right? So usually you pay homage once the person passes away. So maybe viejo, that wouldn't been I wouldn't even cross my mind of getting a cigar for my father at that point.
Mm.
So, and that's why I say everything in life has its journey, has its evolution and all that. And I think my dad's Parkinson, his passing away, the moment he passed away, was what gave life to the final stage of Para Jose Seijas.
Let me ask it differently. Your dad obviously is a legend in the industry in his own rights. It was 2012, I believe, that he was inducted into the Cigar Aficionado Hall of Fame, and you obviously have started to carve your own path, create your own legacy already in the cigar industry. Matilde Cigars has been incredibly well received and continues to grow. Um, Now, Matilde obviously is one side of the picture. It doesn't carry the family name, and then you create a tribute to your father, especially in the blending process. Was your approach different, or did you feel it was tougher for you to get to a result that you loved, knowing that this would carry your father's name rather than being just
Of
another
course.
Matilde Cigars?
Oh, 100%, 150%. So I couldn't agree more. It started because you start with a very, very particular idea of what you're looking for. You always start with a particular idea of what you're looking for when you're creating a new line, right?
Mm.
But you might not get to what you're looking for to 100% because it was such an emotional, passionate project, and the person means so much to me. It was even harder to find the final, to click with that final blend. It was more of the clicking. It was more of like, this is it. Like love at first sight.
Yeah.
It was the same thing. We went through a lot of great blends. It's not that they weren't great blends, it wasn't there. So yeah, to answer your question, if let's say we're still developing the project, and my dad passed away, it could have knowing me could have gone two ways, or it would have taken me a lot longer because it would be an even heavier emotion, or it would be very short and quick. What it'd be like, that this is it, or it would be like, I would still be like developing this freaking project. Um, because
What
it was either going to be something out of pain or something out of it's always going to be pain, but it was like, okay, let's get this done with,
Yeah.
or wait, I need to get this to perfection.
What was the goal, or what was the emotion you were looking for when creating the blend? Um, would you like to blend? Would you have liked to blend a cigar that would please your father, or that you think your father would have loved to smoke, or did you want to encapsulate some of his characteristics, his personality in the way that the cigar smoked?
I was looking for a cigar that he would have loved. Simple as that. It was a cigar. I smoked the cigars that he loved before his Seijas signature and Mi Dominicana, like all those cigars that were iconic from with his name. And it has nothing. It doesn't have similarities when it comes to the blending of tobaccos blended within the lines. But I was looking. If you smoke any of those cigars will have sweetness, will have extreme balance, and will make your mouth water. They're full in body, not in strength, right? So they'll fill your palate with beautiful flavors, and and fill the air with their aromas. And I was looking for that cigar that he would love, because it was a cigar for him. It's not a cigar for the market. Obviously, it's for the market. We're selling it to the market. But when we were creating this blend, I was thinking of him, of what he would love, which would translate to a great cigar for the market, because the guy did a lot of great cigars, right? But it was like, so where does it click? And that was it. It was like, cool, this is it. It was funny because it was like, poop, this is it. And I right away go, let's go into production. But it was it's a very emotional project. It was very tolling, and taking that last decision of saying, you know what, this is a blend that we're gonna make. Uh, it's a tough call, not because it was tough, just because of the size of the project for me and for my family. Because the project's not a large project. I mean, we did a 15,000 cigars, so it's 750 bucks. It's not a large project. It's more of the emotional and the meaning of the product that is so big.
Would you say that your taste preferences very much aligned with those of your father, or is it something else that you're usually looking for in a cigar?
My dad and I had very similar taste preferences. We never looked for cigars with high nicotine strength. We don't like power. It's more the flavors, the sweetness of the cigar, that balance. Is the lack of aggressivity, which a lot of people confuse with strength, right? So we've always had a very similar taste profile. I mean, I don't remember the day that my dad took like a powerhouse and smoked it completely. He would smoke it, he would enjoy it like to half. He would say it's a great cigar, it's got good flavor, great balance. Strength is not for me. He could smoke it, but he just didn't appreciate it as much as other people. Like, put it down and said it was a great cigar. And I'm the same type of person. I can enjoy a very strong cigar. It's not my cup of tea. So if a cigar that he loved is a cigar that I would definitely love.
Do you still feel that the Para José Seijas, regardless, is a great and very fitting part of the Matilde lineup, like recognizably Matilde and very much part of the overarching family, or do you rather see it as sort of its own thing?
It's its own thing. I mean, the Para José Seijas doesn't say Matilde anywhere. It's not part of the Matilde brand. It's part of our company umbrella, obviously, but it's not part of Matilde. Matilde has its own structure, its own price points, its own type of branding. We work with a lot of colors that come from nature. All our cigars, are priced in a certain sweet spot of price points. The Barros is a cigar that gives the most that we have. So it's a cigar that's MSRP at $18 compared to our regular Matildas, which are $7 to $12, and it's because of the base of the project, right? The branding is it's still clean, still simple, but I think the branding Para Jose Seijas it's a little bit more elegant, less Art Nouveau than Matilde. Matilde is more of the Art Nouveau concept, the 1876. So we revived this brand from 1876. I think the Para Jose has more of this classic timelessness when it comes to the branding itself, right? And so it's definitely a different umbrella, which we will be exploring, in the future.
That was actually my
But in
next
this
question,
case,
whether you feel this is sort of a role model or it could be a stepping stone towards other projects that don't necessarily fall under the Matilda umbrella, but maybe even the first step into creating Seijas cigars or something that carries the family name.
it's something that has crossed my mind. It's something that we can't say yes 100%, but it's something that I would love. I would love to keep our family name. We have our brand. We have a family brand now. We can actually keep my dad. It's always about the. I talk a lot uh, about my father and my family, and we're very family oriented, because that's how we were raised, and we were very fortunate to have the family that we've had. So it'd be a great honor for me to keep moving forward, and keep on paying homage to my father through what he introduced me to, because I mean he introduced me to it, and yeah, I mean it's something that might come in the future, where we have a parallel, we have Matilda, and you might have something parallel with Seijas. That's something that's very good possibility.
I mean, obviously, you spoke about the emotional struggles in creating something as meaningful as this. How do you feel moving forward about your position? Also, do you think that Para José Seijas was also a step for you to sort of emancipate yourself a little more as a blender, as the the patron of the company, or the man behind both Matilde and whatever other cigar lines there might be? Do you think this has more of an Enrique Sejas signature on it compared to previous blends?
So let's see. That's an interesting question. Um, for a while now, I've directed we've worked with the blending of our different cigars and brands. It's my dad's a Parkinson's Advanced, right? And I would never want to emancipate, let's say, myself, or separate myself from my father, because that's the legacy, and he is the person that brought me into this beautiful world. But yes, I mean, to answer your question, yes, Para Jose Seijas, it's my own project, where this is a cigar which you have nothing to do with, because it's a present for you. You can't participate in a present for you, right? It wouldn't make any sense. So it's our surprise for you. One thing that I always like to make clear, and my dad had always this clear: when we blend cigars, I don't do it by myself. I mean, depending on the factory I'm working with, we heat advice, we get communications. When I work with Osos, we talk to Osos. We work with Hochi, I talk to Hochi. I'm a firm believer that the more people, not too many people, but you always want to have an interaction with people that know as much or more than you do, right? Always listen and heed advice. That's something that my dad always did, even as the VP of operations at Tabacalera. Never took credit for himself. Obviously, we have the last decision into blending and the manufacturing, right? But it's very important that for everybody to know that making cigars, blending cigars, it's a teamwork. It's a teamwork from the moment, viejo, you're choosing the tobacco, to you're blending the cigars, manufacturing, to selling. There's always we are the face of the company, but we're a minuscule part of the company and of what we do. And you know it, man, Reinhard. You were just traveling in the States, going all over the place promoting Merrifield cigars. So it's when it comes. But yes, I would say that it's been a while now. Well, you'll notice where Matilde's branding focused a lot on my dad for the first couple of years. And I believe about 4 or 5 years ago, we started doing a shift where it was my dad and myself. And then you look at our last year's booth, I had a more prominent part as let's say the protagonist of the face of the company, and my dad had the Para José Seijas, because it has to come to a point where, como dicen, they say in Dominican, te pasan la batuta, so they pass the flame, right? And my dad passed the flame to me a while ago, not because he wanted to, just because of his situation. I think my dad would have died working with tobacco and cigars if he could, right? But it took a while to start putting Enrique Seijas in the front, and it's because of the respect and the love I had or I have for my dad, right? My sales reps and distributors were telling me, Coño, you have to come more in the forefront. You have to come more in the forefront. You have to be more of a protagonist in the brand. And I was still kind of reluctant, not because I didn't want to, but because my father's my father. He is Jose Seijas, right? But obviously, it comes to a point where just move forward and keep on doing it. And in my way of saying, okay, I'm front forward with Matilde, but my father still here is what we did. Is front forward with Matilde, but this Para José Seijas is Seijas.
It's interesting that we work in an industry that so heavily relies on the face of the company, the name of the company, being out there facing the end consumer, doing the heavy lifting in terms of establishing the brand, establishing the reputation. And at the same time, you also know that it's almost a short-sighted strategy, because eventually, that has an end, and you have to think about the next generation. How do you keep that momentum going? How do you bring in the next generation early enough, if they're even interested in getting into the picture? From your experience, how successful do you think a company can be if it doesn't have that sort of front-facing, here's the man, here's the name on of the family center of the cigar, or smack in the middle of the factory entrance?
I think the generational thing of our industry is very important, and it is very true. Also, generational companies, you have the big families, right? You have Fuentes, Merrifield, Padron. In the Dominican Republic, you have Lito, or we also Seijas, right? You have Hochi. So it's always, and there's always one person that's interested and you only need one, right? You only need one. The thing is that you usually, they don't always have the passion or the energy, let's say, that the generation of now has, or doesn't have the namesake. I think that, in my opinion, a company without a face is as a boutique company is tough, right? Because there's so many great cigars in the world. I think nowadays is the best time for cigar smokers. There's a lot of great brands. There's a lot of great tobacco, a lot of great companies putting out great cigars. And this is a very emotional, relationship-based industry. And it goes, once again, even from the suppliers to the consumers. Think about it. It's like, what other company do you sit down and smoke a cigar with the CEO of the company? Have you ever freaking had a cigar with Bill Gates? No, right? You haven't. You don't sit up with a laptop with these guys, right? But the cigar industry is like that. It's very family oriented, very personal, and I think that's where the success of the personal companies, or these companies that are generational and have these personalities pushing forward, because you relate with us, and you say, you know what, let me smoke Matilde, let me smoke Enrique cigar, because it's a great cigar, but I also like him. And that's where this a one-on-one or B2C business comes in, that introduction of the new product. But I don't think it has to be the owner of the company. It could be the sales manager of the company. A great example that I've always used is my friend TJ, from Maganorsa. He's a sales manager. That guy's a fucking beast, and he's loved. Works like a fucking ox, and he travels, and he's loved viejo nationwide and worldwide in the cigar industry. He's known because of it. So he's not the face of the company, but he represents the company. He's not the owner, but he represents a company. And I think it's very important to have that because it's a personal product. And if you don't have a face, you don't have somebody representing your company, it's impersonal. So if it's impersonal, if it's cold, why buy this cigar where I can smoke? It has to be a fucking unbelievable cigar at a great price where you say, you know what, let's say you have both cigars, they're all same price, same quality, same everything, right? You say, I'm going to smoke Enrique cigar, I'm going to smoke the cigar that I don't know. You're always going to choose Enrique cigar or TJ cigar or Reinhardt cigars. You're always going to go towards the cigars that you relate to. It's subjective. Our industry is 100% subjective. It's yes, an evangelist. There you go, Albert. Thank you. Pero that's our industry. That's a beautiful part of our industry. That's the amazing part of our industry is that we relate with tobacco with people all over the world. And shit, I might be traveling one day and I'll meet Albert and say, "Oh, yeah, I was on a smoking lounge, and we had a conversation. We'll talk about something else later on." But there's always that connection. There's always that connection, that face. So yeah, I believe it's important to have that evangelist, that owner, that promoter of the cigar in every company. And you'll notice that every company has it. Doesn't matter the size of the company. Mm-hmm. Look at any single company. If it's a corporation, if it's a family business, viejo, there's always that person that is the face and promoting and traveling for the cigar.
Amen to that. Speaking of Albert, he had a good question for you in the comments. Good to see you, buddy.
Hi. ¿Cómo estás, Enrique?
Bien, ¿y tú?
Okay, we switched to English. It's so I just quick question, to be honest, and it may be branching to something else, but you're using Peruvian tobacco, and if I'm correct, you use that in tropical and then limited edition as well. Yes.
We use so the Peruvian tobacco that we use comes in a special edition price, which is a tropical, one that is tropical. Mm-hmm. And so the special edition project started as a cigar that was going to be for me. It was to be my travel cigar. It was my smoking cigar. When you travel, they gave that special cigar. There was a cigar blended around my palate, but there was a very peculiar thing that I wanted to use. And once again, I go always towards my father. My dad had a cigar called the Seijas Signature Cigar. He launched in 2002. And it had Ecuadorian Sumatran wrapper and the Peruvian tobacco. And these were two tobaccos that we never used. We had not used in Matilde, right? Mm-hmm. As a consequence, I say, you know what? For the special edition projects, there's always a reason behind the blend. And the reason behind this blend is I wanted to use those two tobaccos, those two components that we never use in Matilde towards a special project. So it has the Peruvian Pelodoro filler, and then the wrapper is Ecuadorian Sumatran. It's a combination of Dominican, Nicaraguan, and Peruvian when it comes to the filler.
It's a very interesting combination. I haven't had that limited edition, but I had the tropical, and I really enjoyed it. And I mean, it just kind of makes that blend more interesting. And the more of tobacco varieties that you put in, just like David of Late Hour was like 7 different tobaccos in it. So I really have a knack on it. So is it challenging? Why are you not using it? Is it limited? You can't get enough, or is it very challenging, or there's something in that tobacco flavors that you really I mean, it's complicated to use it, and blend it with other tobaccos. What's the reason?
Oh, Peruvian?
Yeah.
Well, the Peruvian is something that we never used before, but it's not a common tobacco. It's harder to get, so it's not something that I would include. Let's say, for example, in a core blend. So basically, when we're looking into blending cigars, you have to think about different things, right? And the most important part is, can I get this tobacco, the quantities that I need to get it every year to keep that blend consistent?
Yeah,
Because
makes sense.
unlike wine, right? Unlike wine, we don't have vintages, right? That renacer that you smoked, viejo, 10 years ago, you want to make sure it tastes like the same, right? Always going to be variations, but you want to make sure it's as close as possible. So with tobaccos that we don't have a sure access to, like the Peruvian, for example, I can't have constant production, have that access to a coast. We use it for this type of project. It's not a project that's going to be a one-time thing, but it's going to be a project that's not going to be poor in production. It's going to be constantly produced, because we want to make sure that when we produce it, we have the right age, right type, and the right quantity to produce what we need to produce in that batch.
All right, so it was basically a supply chain, constraint rather than actually, that it's complicated to work with, blend wise, flavor profile wise. All right.
Yeah.
Is it the same variety in both projects? That Peruvian tobacco
It's the
is
same project. You're talking about the same project. The Tropical is
hold on.
what we call what Tropical is special edition.
Oh,
The Tropical
okay.
is a special edition.
I see.
Yeah.
Now it makes perfect sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
you're like, wait,
every day
you
is
have the
project.
same combination of cigar in two different cigars. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
No, it's the same.
Okay.
The thing
Cool.
is that it started as Tropical and ended up a special edition because of legal things. But I call it the special edition project because that umbrella of Matilde, every single project every single cigar that we create under that umbrella will have a reason of why we use that tobacco. Hence special edition, special product. Then we have the limited exposure projects, which are batch productions of the same blend year after year. That's limited exposure number 1, number 2. And the number 3 that we're in the process of preparing.
All right. Well, silly me, but I never realized that it was a limited edition. So what flavors you're looking from the Peruvian tobacco? What's I mean, I smoke predominantly Cuban or Nicaraguan, and thanks to Reinhard, some more interesting varieties also land in my humidor. But what about that Peruvian tobacco? What flavors it gives that you obviously is it like filler, like 100% filler? Well, it's not. It's Nicaraguan and Peruvian.
No.
So
it's got a combination.
What it gives? What spice? What the hints?
The Peruvian tobacco gives you a nice sweetness with good strength, with a nice chocolate heaviness towards the cigar. So it's got a beautiful sweetness and good strength towards it. So that's what it adds towards the special edition.
Well, makes sense for that sweetness that I had. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's it. That's the question I had.
The cool thing about it is that if you smoke the special edition with Tropical that you smoked, it's not a in-your-face sweet cigar. It has an undertone of, I like to call it undertone of sweetness. So you don't feel like that sweet, but like the top of your tongue when you're smoking, you have like this undertone of sweetness. You feel sweet, but it's not like sugar sweet. Just feels that sweetness that's very mellow, which is what I love about that cigar.
Yeah, that's a great cigar, and that's the only one I had from your company, so that's great. and
it's a good start.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, and I think it was highly rated as well. I don't remember because I saw it on Half Wheel at some point, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's a great cigar. I should try it. So anyway,
yeah, I think
thanks
we
a
had
lot.
91 or 92 and a half wheel.
Oh, there you go. Nice. All right, thanks a lot. Yeah, good information.
Thank you, Albert.
Cheers.
Enrique, on the note of availability when it comes to raw material, how much of that would you say is just dependent on your personal relationships with tobacco suppliers? And how much does the factory that you work with weigh in? Because obviously the factory that you work with is going to have something on inventory. They will have their own relationships with certain purveyors. Sort of how much falls on your lap and your responsibility rather than the factory? Whether that is
It's a combination.
or hostos with La Isla now.
It's a full-on combination. Like when I work in Tabacalera in Palma with Hochi, I rarely go out of what he has in inventory of tobacco, because he's one of the largest tobacco growers in the Dominican Republic. He has a large inventory of very well-aged tobacco, but it wouldn't make any sense for me to start exploring. When I work with Ostos, we do explore and we work together and say, Coño, and that's where you say, you know what, I want to try Peruvian, I want to try this Ecuadorian Sumatran. And we start exploring together when it comes to that. So we use part of the tobaccos that he has at the factory, right? And then if I want something specific, we go out and source it.
If, for
And
example,
when it comes to the availability, the relationship is a relationship. Either he has it or I have it, and that's how we assure that availability that we have here. Like we were talking about the Mexican rappers. The Terrence don't sell it directly; they sell it through Inetap. We have a relationship with Inetap. But in any case, if at some point, Viejo, you have to, call Gerardo or something like that. Coño, mira, I need this. I'm sure you can actually secure it. But it's always me or the factory. Also, he's generational. He's fourth generation. He's been in the industry for a long time. Hochi, I mean, you can't even talk about Hochi. Right? He's fifth generation, and he's a legacy by himself. So it's everything goes hand in hand, right? It's either both him or me, depending on what you're actually looking for.
Do you feel that over the years it's gotten easier for your company to secure certain types of tobacco that you probably wouldn't have had access to when you started?
Not really. Remember, my dad came from buying a lot of tobacco. So we, as a small new company, we still had access to basically anything at that point. It was more of a how much money do you have to spend, more than how much access to the tobaccos you have. He ran the largest cigar operation in the world for 30 years. He knew every cigar grower, processor that needed to be known. So we never had that, and anybody that's in the industry. In our case, we started new, right? In our case, we started with Matilde from scratch, right? But and we were fortunate that we had those contacts. But it's the same thing. Because it's a generational thing. These contacts, this relationship get passed, generation by generation. And it's my dad and that person. Let's say, for example, with the Marushkis, it was my dad and Mr. Siegfried, right? Then when Fito took over, so I did an internship at Fito's. Fito's older than I am, but Fito's like my generation, let's say, for example. He still has a relationship with my dad and my mom, but then I have the relationship with Fito, and it keeps on going. And now his daughter's getting into the industry. So maybe, hopefully, when my son gets into the industry, it's going to be my son and his daughter and the relationship. So it's generational all across the board. Generational, tobacco-wise, factory-wise, distribution-wise, store-wise. Reynard, tell me, how many stores are generational? Most stores, it passed through generations to generations to generations, like family and family. There's always the cool thing about one of the things that I love about cigars. It's very polarizing. You love it or you don't love it. I've never heard somebody say, I smoked a cigar. I kind of liked it, but I might smoke a cigar. No, sorry, you either like smoking cigars or you don't like smoking cigars. You smoke it frequently or not, but you fall in love with them or you don't. And once you're in the industry, it's really hard to get out. How many people do you know have gotten out of the industry? They sold their company. They're still in the industry. Also, they retired. They're still in the industry at some level. Also, you don't leave. It's like a beautiful black hole of tobacco and beauty. You just stay. It just sucks you in, and it doesn't go. So it's only one generation. You have 5 kids. You only need one, right, to keep that generation going. So that's it.
Just a quick follow-up question on the factories. Do you feel that Hochi is more of your sort of safe bank where you know what you're getting, this is where you want to go, and then if you really want to start exploring, get a little funkier, try some new stuff, you go with Hostos and you look at La Isla for quickier creations?
That's how we have been structured. Yes. So if you notice, anything that comes from Palma is usually my core productions. So Serena, Serena Maduro, Renacer, Quadrata, Oscura, and you'll see more limited stuff comes out of Osos's factory, which are limited exposures. I mentioned we have the Edición Limitada América, which is something we don't really distribute. It's more of a smaller project, Para José Seijas, those special editions. So you'll notice that the more playful products come out of Osos. No particular reason why I don't work one with the other. I just because Hochi, as I said, has such a large inventory of tobacco, it just makes sense for me to have my core coming out of that factory.
That makes perfect sense, obviously. How is working with Hostos different, just in terms of the creative process? I saw him again in New Orleans, and he's such an interesting character and a really good young man. But how's that creative dynamic between you two when you're working on something?
Well, it's great. We're from the same generation, starting with that, right? We've known each other a long time before we started working with each other. So it's a different dynamic. With Osos, it's more of a peer, let's say. So we're working peer to peer. When I work with Hoji, is more of a mentor, right? He's got a lot more experience than I do. I heed a lot more advice from Hoji than I would from Osos. Not that Osos doesn't give advice, right? But it's more of a mentor relationship where Hoji's trying. Sometimes I want to do something. It's like, oh, mijo, I don't recommend you to do that because X, Y, Z. Well, with also it's more of a, same age, same everything, same generation. So it's more of a peer, playing around and doing that kind of stuff. So it's a very different dynamics. Both great, but just very different dynamics.
Because also, with one, you're going to have a reliable result, and then with the other one, you can express yourself a little more freely in terms of the creative process, and if you want to work on something you haven't done before, I guess.
Like popcorn, throwing this thing and seeing what happens. But yeah, it's cool. It's I like it. I like both processes, and both processes have their own challenges. But they're both great companies to work with. People wise, product wise, quality wise. One thing that I can tell you is that this industry, you can't work with people that you don't trust. So I trust Viejo wholly, and both the people I work with, and I think that's the most important part of working with a. If you don't have your own factory, of having somebody make cigars for you, it's having that trust and having people that are serious and deliver what is it? I know a lot of people, and it's very unfortunate because it's very easy in our industry to do that. Get handed a blend, and then their final production is something kind of off, and there's not much that can be done at that point. So I think having these institutions, both people that you trust wholly, blindly, is a very important part of the relationship, personal wise and business wise as well.
Absolutely true. Now, one thing that I always liked about Matilde is you have a very well-structured, clear core portfolio that is easily recognizable, stands out in terms of its packaging and presentation, and also has a very clearly defined aromatic profile, or what the cigar is supposed to deliver and how it hits your palate. You've started adding onto this, obviously, with limited exposures. Now, Para José Seijas is sort of its own world. How do you look at the overall structure of the portfolio and stuff that you've been working on or that you want to work on for the next couple of years? How do you see that whole structure evolving?
Keep it stupid simple. KISS. So I believe in simplicity. I believe in not overcomplicating. So as you said, our branding structure is very simple. It's when we started Matilde, we wanted to make sure it was a brand that was accessible at different levels. Branding wise, as you were saying, all our boxes are the same. We work with 4 core sizes of the Corona, Robusto, Toro, and Grande. All our line extensions are a descriptor of the cigar. We go with the Serena. Serena is serene. It's calm. It's relaxing. It's our mild to medium cigar. The box is blue because I'm from the Dominican Republic, and the beach is where you most relax, right? You go with the Serena Maduro. It's a deeper teal because it's got a deeper flavor. Still medium under in strength, but it's deeper flavor. So when you go on a helicopter, and you see the shore, usually when it's lower, it's lighter than when it's deeper. So that's why the color of the deep blue. Renacer, Cuadrata, and Oscura represent the change of the tobacco leaf. It goes from your brown to your reddish or your orange, and it's supposed to represent that change of the tobacco leaf when it's curing, right? But it's the same thing. It's Renacer, it's rebirth. It's a new brand that we rebirth. Oscura is our first Maduro, was our first dark cigar. Cuadrata, it's a box press. But we also wanted to make it accessible when it came to visually and reminding the brand. So our logo is there. You won't remember the name, but you can remember the colors. People don't remember names or remember faces. It's the same thing with our cigars. You like a Matilde, you're going to know what color you liked. You might not remember the name, but you'll know what color you like. If you're a retailer, I say I want the blue box, the orange box. If you're a consumer, the same thing. And that's the idea with keeping it accessible visually. Accessible palette-wise, when it comes to the core portfolio, we don't have a powerhouse. We have a lot of flavor, more than strength. So we want to keep it accessible palette-wise. And then price-wise, our core is always kept in that sweet spot. Now what happens, now we're creating a pyramid when it comes to Matilde. We started at the bottom with the core. Then we have what I like to call the limited exposure projects. I believe in repetition. I believe in giving the consumer and the retailers a product that they can sell constantly. It is so, it sucks when you love a cigar and you know you're never going to get it again. It sucks when the retailer has a cigar that sells well and they're never going to get it again. So that's where the limited exposure program comes in, right? The limited exposure, what it does is that we create a batch production that year. So it's a limit in production, but not in time. We have that cigar, we produce it, we sell it. Once they're out of the market, they're out of the market. And then the next year we'll have another batch production. So it's a limited quantity production, not in time. So that goes on the top of, goes on top of the pyramid. And then comes the special edition projects. And more of, instead of having a product that you know when to expect it, the special edition products are more of productions where we will have the cigar produced and distributed when they're ready. Those special edition, Matilde Special 2024, had reason of Ecuadorian Sumatran wrapper, the Peruvian filler. We produced it and then we released it. It's not a cigar that's never going to appear again in the market, but it's just going to happen when it happens. So it's more of our limited stuff, right? And then top of the totem pole of Matilde is a product that we are in the process of developing that I'll divulge a little bit more when we're more into we have more developed, which is going to be a little bit higher price point. The product better, more aged, and just a different type of product when it comes to Matilde, but always keeping sure that the core, which I believe is the most important part of any cigar company, any cigar brand, it keeps consistent and keeps true to what we are, which is consistency, viejo, quality, and flavor more than strength. We try to make sure any cigar that we do, any product that we do, doesn't matter if it's a limited exposure, the special editions, a core, that you always will be able to enjoy the cigar without getting kicked in the face. But we're in the process of building that brand pyramid where you have the core at the bottom, and then you have more rotational products at the top. So you have like those sprinkles that bring you back to the core. Hey, we're here. This isn't new, but go back to the core. And that's always been my thing. You know, you liked it, yeah, sure. Go back to the core. We'll bring something back new. It's you know, being hard. It's easy to have spikes in this industry when you do limited stuff. You know, you do 3 limited productions every year. It's a spike in sales, spike in sales, spike in sales. But it doesn't add to your. It adds to those spikes, but your organic growth is not there. If you don't keep on doing those spikes, you become a slave of limited, and that's something that we've tried to stay away from. We do limiteds, we do productions, but we like to focus on the core because that's what's going to give us the organic growth within the consumer, within the retailers, within the company, right? That's what's going to keep the company growing.
And their loyalty also, because, you know, not once have we seen the example of companies that just come out with limited after limited after limited, and you might fall in love with one, but maybe next year's is totally not floating your boat or sitting well with your palate, and then you just you set yourself up for failure repeatedly, and you're trying to reiterate and come out with something new all the time, but you never build that trust and loyalty with your consumer base truly. So very much appreciated. Curious about
it is very fun to do limited stuff.
I can totally see that. Absolutely.
My dad always told me the fun part is creating the blend. The work starts when you got to keep that blend consistent year after year.
How very true. I'm very curious about what you said, that little cherry on top that you're building, though, and
it's going to be interesting.
Talk about any timeline on that, or
I'll keep it. I'll just stick this keep it to there because there's a lot of things moving along. So usually I don't like talking about time if we don't have the you know, our industry is very we have the reputation of saying something's coming out and it doesn't come out, it doesn't come out. And I learned very quickly that you start cacarear, you start talking about things once you have the at least, you know, the final project in production, then you start talking about it, because if not, viejo, it's just you know, people get bored. I want to be able to present when I talk about it.
That makes absolute sense. Enrique, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today, and particularly learning more about Para José Seijas. Final question: if you were to sit down with your dad and smoke a Para José Seijas with him, what do you think his reaction would be, and what would you love his reaction to be?
I'm pretty sure he would cry. I'm pretty sure. I mean, my dad, as I said, a guy a few words, viejo, he'd just be truly, viejo, touched and honored. I think it was the best. It was the best way of thanking him, and I think it would have been the besides his children, it would have been the best present that we could have done as a family and as a company. It covered everything. The 3 things that he loved the most, it was covered at some level. And that was it. It would, I would say, you know, he'd say thank you. He'd love you. He'd put out a nice speech towards me and my mom and my brother. And he would just sit down and enjoy it. I think that's it. You know, I'm sure he's doing up in heaven. But yeah.
Well, Enrique, I couldn't think of a better way to end today's show, and what a beautiful session it has been. It's always refreshing, enlightening, and truly a blessing to spend time with you. And I say this from
Likewise.
And not lightheartedly. So thank you for everything you do, man. I hope that we will see each other very, very soon. Latest in Dortmund, I guess. But
hopefully sooner.
much sooner than that. Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining me.
Thank you, my friend. Much love, eh? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Reynard.
See you all next week, same time, same station.
Ciao, ciao.
Let him out, everybody.